to face for the Newsfirst team. I'm Niresh Eliathambi. Anti-corruption has become something of a catchphrase, a buzzword with so many elections. We are running into our second election now, and there'll be a third one in January or February, we believe. Now, with all this happening, it's all about anti-corruption. But is enough being done? And what's the problem? What has been the problem for the last 10 or 20 years? And how can it be resolved? What are the bottlenecks, the stumbling blocks? And to discuss all this, we have with us this evening Mr. Upul Jayasuriya, President's Counsel and former President of the Bar Association. Good evening, Mr. Jayasuriya.
Good evening, Niresh.
Now, Mr. Jayasuriya, what's the actual problem? Because crime, corruption, every country has it. But many countries have systems where they deal with it very quickly and efficiently, and they file the charges, they get the convictions, and the matter is ended. Let's take Singapore, for example. A few months ago, the announcement was made their Minister of Transport was arrested. He was charged and then convicted, and now he is in prison. Done and dusted. Why doesn't that happen in Sri Lanka?
Well, as for Sri Lanka, we too have an institution called the Bribery and Corruption Commission. It comes under a ministry, and also it has a high-powered commission members, and the ministers and the political parties. Every time they come into power, they are talking about anti-corruption. But I think, as identified by me, my personal opinion is the biggest problem that this country has with regard to fighting corruption is the politicians themselves. It has become a rhetoric word, anti-corruption, and with which they can always come to power. And that was the case even in 2015, and now the case in 2019, and now in 2024. We heard anti-corruption being the slogan of all four candidates, the first, second, third, and the fourth. Some of them are also accused with so much of corruption. Some are accused with not fighting corruption. At least the first two are people who are not accused of any corruption, but they have also been talking about fighting corruption. And well, the first candidate, Mr. Kumara Dissanayake, is now the president. Well, he has been speaking of this corruption, and he has been speaking of large number of files that he was in possession, and that he was also heard to say that as far as the investigations are concerned, they are all concluded, and it's just a matter of filing action or the indictments in courts. But we have not seen that, or we have not heard about it. So people have lost their patience. There is no 30 days or 100 days or 6 months given for this kind of situation. People want to see actual things happening. Now, we have had situations where, in the case of Greek bond, it took 12 years for the indictment to be filed in court. That again, there was a fault, and it had to be redrafted and then filed again, which has now been done. Then we have heard the case of Kapila Chandrasena, CEO of Sri Lankan Airlines. I mean, that's one of the biggest sore points in this country. We are wasting so much of money on the Sri Lankan Airlines. Why are we wasting money? Because we have gone and paid prices for these aircrafts more than the market prices. So we can't sustain. Sri Lankan Airline tickets are not cheap. In comparison with other airlines, they are expensive, but still we can't sustain that because we cannot service the loans that we have taken, because we have paid much higher prices than what is existing in the market. So there are so many issues.
But in that particular case, Sri Lankan Airlines, Airbus industry admitted in court that they had bribed officials of, I think, 6 or 7 airlines around the world. to pay to buy aircraft which were not necessary for those airlines and to pay exorbitant prices. So that's already been admitted. Airbus industry paid billions of dollars in fines levied on them by I believe the European Union, and it was a joint investigation with the FBI, Scotland Yard, and the French police. So it was an open and shut case. So we have all that evidence already collected.
This is the sad part of the story. When we have all that evidence, as you say, I'm sure the Bribery and Corruption Commission must be possessed with all this information and evidence. We still have not heard an indictment or the prosecution being initiated in the court of law for the last more than 5-6 years. So this is not something that is expected by the people of this country. Well, if you look at as far as this country is concerned, nothing can move forward in this country without foreign investments. Why aren't foreign investments coming to this country? One of the main areas, as identified by even the IMF, is corruption. What is the government going to do about fighting corruption? So far, the Wickremesinghe government did nothing about fighting corruption. He said that was not my mandate. His mandate was only the economy. But he didn't realize that the IMF, one of the main conditions were also to put the country right on the right path in fighting corruption. So, if you take the BOI alone, as I have said even previously in some of your programs, for a month we have been terminating more than 10 to 15 agreements. Why? These are people, investors from overseas. They come to Sri Lanka, they spend money to come and stay here, they got project analysis done, they have submitted applications, they have been doing various other examinations. Having spent so much of money, having signed these agreements, they are unable to take it off the ground. Why? Because there is corruption. Everywhere they go, there is corruption. One of the biggest problems that we have in this country is there is no coordination between institutions. They will always put the blame on the other institution. They will put it on another institution and another institution. It just goes on and on. Few days back, I was in Malaysia for the Law Asia conference. I saw how coordinated their efforts are. When you come down from the hotel, come down to the ground floor, there is a mall across the road, but you can't cross the road. I asked the people, how are you going to get there? He said, no, you go down, there's an underpass to the mall. And when you go through the underpass, there is also the railway. Tube railway is coming there in 2 different directions. Not 2, at least 4 directions. So everything is so much coordinated. Here the people, even the public sector institutions, they are so much confined to their own compartments. And they want to be the king of their empire. They don't want to be interfered by anyone else. They will say, my word is the last word. No one can change that kind of thing. Now, this is the kind of attitudinal change that we require in this country, without which we cannot eradicate corruption. When that happens, then the investors are duped or even coerced to pay some money and then get things done in a fast-track manner. But even that, people keep on asking higher prices. Then they get so sick of it and then they go away. So the BOI is left with no option but to terminate these agreements.
So, Mr. Jayasuriya, you spoke of cooperation or the lack of cooperation between government institutions.
Coordination.
So, coordination. So let's look at the government institutions involved in, which should be involved in the fight against corruption. So it starts with the Bribery Commission itself. It may involve local police stations. So that's the police department, the CID, which is part of the police department, and then the Attorney General's department itself. So are they not coordinating with each other? Is there a huge issue there?
That's not the first step. That is the second step. The first step is the different institutions that the investor is compelled to meet and then get different approvals. If you are making an infrastructure project, say a building for a shopping mall or maybe apartment complex, he has to obtain more than 24 approvals from different institutions. So where does he turn to? Now this was not the case at the time when Mr. Premadasa was in power. When you sign the agreement for a government project, he went on with this 200 government projects, so he did more than that. When having signed the agreement, when the investor goes past probably going home or to his office, when he comes to about Kolpiti, he gets a call from the electricity board. He says, when do you want the electricity? Where do you want it installed? Then another call from custom, when are you opening the LCs? Another call from the banks. So like that, people were pushed to support these services. But it's the other way now.
So 30 years ago or 35 years ago, we had a system which was functioning fairly well. Not perfect by any means, but where investors and big money was concerned, there was a system. But we have simply gone backwards.
Yes. If you take the Katunayaka zone, we had people it was started in 1978. By 1982, we had more than 50,000 people working. But today, we don't have even 32,000 people working at Katunayaka. Same story with some other Biyagama and then some other the zones. And now with this Economic Transformation Act that has now come into operation, with which there was the day that it was signed, it was going to be the BOI was going to be extinguished. And what happened was at the parliament, when the voting was going on, Mr. Dr. Harsha De Silva proposed that there should be at least a transitional period. Those who drafted this didn't even realize that. And with the transitional period that he proposed and introduced, which was 3 months, now the 3 months is expiring on the 9th of November. Now, this government, I don't blame this government for that matter, they can't be going to this in just 1 or 2 weeks. But that is a piece of legislation that was brought in without consulting a single officer, single senior officer of the BOI. I say this with responsibility. Director General downwards, nobody has been consulted. But they brought in a law creating 5 institutions. These institutions starting from the Economic Commission, the Investment Zone Sri Lanka, that was going to be dissected into different zones. Then Invest Sri Lanka is another company that was going to be created by the Economic Commission. Then there were going to be 3 other officers, Office of the International Trade, then the National Productivity Commission, then Sri Lanka Institute of Economics and International Trade. These are all companies that are created, different institutions. So the investor who steps into this country would know where to turn. There are altogether, as I just read through this list, there are more than 7 institutions that are going to be created. 5 institutions are not even interrelated. You come to the BOI as at the moment, or rather the old situation as it existed, they provide the land. Of course, there was a transparent system that was introduced. It is made public, all the lands that are available, and the bids have to be submitted. So the highest bidder is given the land. So now the land allocation will be by a private company. That private company is coming under Zone Lanka. Zone Lanka can create different companies for different zones. Now they will be, the Katunayaka zone is doing perfectly well. Now Biyagama zone is doing perfectly well. It's almost full. Maybe about 5% is, maybe some people who have vacated can be reallocated to some other companies. So even those companies have to pay something for the upkeep and the salaries of the BOI staff. The half of the BOI revenue is coming from the zones. Now all that is going into private sector. That is going to be given to private sector companies, and maybe Treasury can own some shares, maybe majority shares or minority shares, whatever. And different companies will be given different zones. And this is going to be a total mess. Now, in every country, they say one-stop shop. As I always call it, Sri Lanka is gradually, we are being made to degenerate from what it was to a situation we cannot make things happen. The investors can come here, they can roam around, they can spend money, they can enjoy the warm beaches, they can go and visit the ruins. That's about it all. They will leave this country after sympathizing with us and its people.
So, if a genuine investor can't come in here and get his or her work done, then you're leaving the door open for the corruption to happen.
That's precisely what I've been saying. Why I explain all that situation that is happening there is the doors have been opened for corruption. Now, for instance, the strategic development law was something that was brought in by Basil Rajapaksa. There again, the entire process had to be taken to the cabinet of ministers through the minister of strategic development. That was he himself, at least 3 times. So each time it goes to the cabinet, obviously he'll be demanding a bribe. There is no question about it. And then what happened is, even under the economic transformation law, the approval process has to be given by the respective line or agency. And if they don't give the approval as expected, then it passes to the Economic Commission, but they can't give the approval. Then they have to bring it to the notice of the minister. Minister has to take it to the cabinet. Then the cabinet has to give the approval and then bring it back to the minister. So you are creating another Frankenstein monster called the minister, who will be taking the proposal, who will be taking the so-called approval process to the cabinet of ministers. Why should the cabinet of ministers? What knowledge, what expert knowledge do they have that the officials who are experts in their own field do not possess with?
So now, once corruption happens, how do you go about correcting this? What needs to be done? Now, obviously, the situation with the BOI and these multiple companies being set up, that's certainly far from ideal. So that area has to be strengthened, has to be sorted out rather. But then what about the corruption which has happened, which is going on? Because just because a government changed doesn't mean that corruption has just vanished over the last 3 weeks. The public sector officials, many of whom would have been taking bribes, didn't stop sort of taking those bribes, did they? I mean, there's no evidence as such. So there's been no proper method implemented.
Let me say this. When you say corruption, I don't blame all the ministers of the cabinet to be corrupt in any government. There are many ministers who are not corrupt. But the problem arises from the officials. They are the stumbling block, firstly. Then some ministers who are prone to corruption, they try to make a fast buck in between. So we have to tackle it at different levels. Firstly, you have to create the systems in such a way, leaving no opening or opportunity for those people to be corrupt. That is why my suggestion has been throughout. Even we too filed application in the Supreme Court challenging this economic transformation bill. What I proposed there was also that whatever the approval process, if not given by the particular line or agency, it should be transferred to the Economic Commission, and they should be in a position to give the approval then and there. And even if they fail to give the approval within a matter of say 2 weeks or 1 month the most, then there should be a deemed approval. Why should that go to the minister or the cabinet of ministers? That is for the purpose of opening a doorway for monies to be taken from such investors, the bribery and corruption, nothing but that. So these are not, we can have all the bribery commission and all that. That is the ultimate thing. But in the meantime, it is the duty of the government to look into these things, to eradicate corruption by creating systems or changing the systems which are corrupt systems in a way that people can then have confidence in the system, confidence in the country, and the people will be enticed to come to this country and then invest.
Now, let's go down to a more fundamental question. Why are so many Sri Lankan officials and Sri Lankans in general corrupt? What is it that causes them to be corrupt? Because people are not born corrupt. It's not that just because you're a Sri Lankan, you're a corrupt person. Absolutely not. But what is it that causes Sri Lankans to become corrupt? Is it the opportunity to earn these ill-gotten gains?
When people see people having obtained bribes of $2 million, as in the case of Airbus deal, and roaming around freely, enjoying the ill-gotten money, isn't that alone an incentive for them? They say, if that fellow can do it, why can't I do it? Because I will not be prosecuted. Because the institutions that are there for the purpose of fighting corruption are sleeping. They're in deep slumber. So why not I do it? I'll firstly earn some money for my family, for myself, then my family, their children's children and their relatives, like that. Corruption is everywhere. No? Now take the last parliament. The speaker had a personal staff, and that personal staff included 5 or 6 people from his own family. 2 brothers, in-laws, sisters, daughter, son, all that. Isn't it corruption? Shouldn't he be charged with corruption? Will he ever be charged for corruption? Now the diplomatic the staff, all the politicians' children who have been sent and then planted in overseas missions as secretary, first, second secretary, third secretary, fourth secretary, whatever. Isn't that corruption?
Well, it's nepotism, which is certainly a form of corruption.
Corruption has a very wide meaning. Corruption has a very wide meaning. Now take for instance Nama Rajapaksa's declaration of assets. He has declared that he has been gifted at the wedding some valuable cars which are worth about more than 50-60 million. Isn't that corruption? You must investigate record statements to find out whether he has got any government transactions or any dealings with the government, contracts, whatever. Then all the details will come out. The gems and jewelry that he has been possessing. Surely, I mean, the property that he owned. I mean, when things are so blatantly clear, so much is written in black and white, people see these things happening around. When people in power enjoy such immunity, right, and people are suffering, they can't they can't get a meal for their family and children. Don't you think that there is anger that builds in their minds? It is the anger that displayed at the last presidential election. They said, look, we have no trust in any one of you. And they said, okay, that's why we are voting for LPP. So be it. But they have a huge responsibility on their shoulders to show and demonstrate what they said on the stage to be put into practice. I have still hope that they will do it, but I have certain reservations. Now there was this, I may have spoken about this even previously, the Lanka transformers issue. I think that is the worst ever commercial crime committed in this country. Worst ever. The value of it at the moment is about 35 billion rupees.
Quite extraordinary.
Extraordinary. And it is being committed by few people, 3 plus 2 people who are already working in the company, Lanka Transformers. And complaints have been made to the CID, Bribery and Corruption Commission. Nothing had happened so far. The matters have been taken up in other fora and also in the Supreme Court. So, the newly appointed chairman has been brought in as a respondent. Newly appointed chairman is an appointee of the current regime. So, he has opportunity to come and tell the truth. What happened?
But nobody seems to be speaking about this. I mean, you have been speaking on this program several times. You have spoken about Lanka Transformers. You have been speaking to other media institutions as well. But very few other people seem to be talking about this issue.
Yes, I agree. I say whoever is not speaking about this issue is a corrupt person himself. That's what I have to say. Whichever the party they belong to. If a person is not seeing what is happening, I mean, I'm throwing the challenge. Even to this former Auditor General, Mr. Vijay Singh, who is speaking all the time about these trillions of rupees that have been lost, which I don't agree with regard to the bond scam. But here is a situation where 35 billion shareholding is now owned and controlled by them, plus now they have taken another 28% which they are controlling. So 63% is controlled by them, 65% is controlled by them, and CB holding has gone down to 35%.
But this was a government-owned company.
Until this West Coast transaction took place, transferring them 28% of the holding that was held by the Ceylon Electricity Board to the West Coast, which is also controlled, which is also a company that are owned by Lakdanavi, which is owned by Lanka Transformers in turn, finally. So, there are a lot of legal provisions that have been violated. Let's not go into all that. But if there's anybody who is not talking about it, I throw this challenge to the CEB, the new management. If you're not talking about it, if you're turning a blind eye to this, then you are corrupt as well.
Now, why is it that these high-profile cases simply just get stalled? I can't think of any high-profile case which has been satisfactorily resolved. Whether you take, whether it's a corruption case or a murder case, Lasantha Wickramatunga, Tajuddin and so on, none of those ever seem to get resolved.
High profile cases, if they are not getting resolved, the simple reason why it is not getting resolved is because there are politicians that are involved in that, including Lasantha Wickramatunga's case, including Easter bomb attack, including Lanka Transformers, including Airbus deal. All these cases, there are high profile personalities, politicians, top level politicians that are involved in this. And those politicians have been giving various kind of political favors to so many other people who are also holding high office. So they have to scratch each other's back. So they don't have to, they didn't have to go into all these things because they have been politically benefited, as it happened in the last 2.5, 3 years of the previous regime. People who have been benefited politically did not want these matters to be gone into. There's no doubt about why such heinous crimes are not being investigated. And also take, for instance, the economic crimes case that again held by the Supreme Court by a bench of 4 judges, that the Rajapaksa regime and then so many other people have caused loss to the government to the extent of 493 billion. Now, there are various provisions in the Central Bank Act, and also there is a complaint that has been lodged in the Bribery and Corruption Commission. The complainants got a letter from the Commission saying that yes, we have entertained your complaint, but since then we have not heard anything. Why? Because there are high profile people involved. If it was a grammar sevaka or a school principal who has taken 10,000 rupees to admit a child, which I don't condone, he is taken into custody, remanded, indicted and sent to jail. I think there is a social iniquity even in the administration of justice. I think it is better to legalize those bribes. With a tongue in cheek, I am saying that. When this kind of high level rogues are left to roam around in the society freely.
We're in conversation with Mr. Upul Jayasuriya, President's Counsel. We're going to cross over for a short commercial break. So don't go away, we'll be right back.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
අමුච හිතන්නේ භූපතියට ගේමක් දෙන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි කියලා.
හැබැයි මිනිස්සු මේ වන විට අපි ගැන දැඩි විශ්වාසයක් තබලා තියෙන්නේ. පක්ෂ දේශපාලනය තුල අපි කුරුවල් වෙලා ගිය දේශපාලන පක්ෂයක් නොවන හින්දා.
ඔය රාවදරුවෝ ටික අමරන්ද මහත්තයා උදව් කරයිද?
උදව්නේ හාමුදුරනේ මේ කරේ.
මේ මෙස්සා අද රාත්‍රී 9ට සිරස TV තුලින්
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
Welcome back to Face to Face. We are in conversation with President's Counsel Upul Jayasuriya, and the topic is corruption and the vital need to stamp it out. Mr. Jayasuriya, let's look at the AG's department, Attorney General's department. Every country seems to have one. Why is it that some countries have properly functioning AG's departments, and then you get countries like Sri Lanka where it's very dysfunctional? Everything seems to get lost there. The files seem to disappear down a black hole in the AG's department. What's going on?
There again, I would say from time to time, not always. In the olden days, of course, there was no interference at all from the politicians on the Attorney General and its department. But lately, there have been a lot of interference, and also people like, take for instance, the arrest of Mr. Shani Abbesekara, and he was been not prosecuted but persecuted. There was no merit in the kind of allegation that they were leveling against him. Even the Attorney General's department knew very well that they were all trumped up charges, but justice has been finally meted out to him. He's one of the best officers, I would say. He and Ravi Senaratne both put together, they are the Sherlock Holmes of Sri Lanka. The kind of, I had never heard Shani Abbesekara or Ravi Senaratne exerting pressure or even torture on any one of those people who have been arrested. It was not the case during the time of Mr. Tirul Gunathilaka, who was the investigator at that time. But here, there again, if that was the case, how could that Shani was kept in the remand for more than 7 months? If the AG's department was independent, how could that have happened? No way. No way. So we can see that unfortunately this has been happening. I have trust and confidence and respect for the present holders of office, Mr. Parindra Ranasinghe Jr. and also Mrs. Ayesha Jinasena. In fact, she is the one who prosecuted Deshapanda Tenakon with regard to the Aragalaya incident, and that cost her the job of the Attorney General. She would have retired by December, which now she has retired without ascending that top post. So there had been interference from time to time, and it happens at the level of the police also. CID, they keep on changing I think the CID head, the director, should be an appointment that should be recommended and appointed by the Constitutional Council. Because each time the government changes, that person who is holding such office cannot be changed. It should not be controllable by the minister in charge or the politicians connected with the government. He must be appointed so that he will be responsible to through the police commission to the Constitutional Council. Even the high posts that are in the police department should also be controlled not by the police commission, because police commission has been lately quite ineffective. Even some of the recommendations that they have made are not in keeping with the norms that they are expected to follow. So there again, at a lower level, even the kind of promotions that they have been giving at the whims and fancy of the particular minister that was there from time to time, not the present minister, of course, he has been just appointed. So I think there has to be some sanity to be brought into the police department, and also it should be made truly independent. If they don't investigate the proper complaints that are lodged within a matter of time. Now, these are proposals that were made in the SJB legal reforms, where not only the CID but also the Bribery and Corruption Commission, whatever the complaint that is lodged will have to be investigated within a matter of 3 months. If not, they can report facts to the nearest magistrate and then obtain 3 months, maximum of 3 months more, and then they must conclude the investigation within that period, either prosecuting. As for the prosecution, the Attorney General's Department can have another 6 months. Altogether, within a matter of 1 year, the prosecution has to be initiated. So, these are some of the reforms that were brought forward by the SJB. Of course, I am sure there is no patent right for any of these proposals. These are good proposals. I hope the new President will adopt these proposals, including the public prosecutor, which they were referring to. We have also said something more to it, public defender. And in a new parliament, if the SJB wins, fine. If the SJB doesn't win the election, I would, on my own, I would like to have these proposals converted into private member bills even and presented to the parliament. I am sure nobody in the parliament, including the NPP regime, will not oppose these constructive proposals that should be brought in order to curb the criminal prosecution, corruption issues, and also to encourage the prosecutions.
Now, let's go back to the investment scenario. You were speaking earlier about how much it costs the country when we have such a corrupt system and investors who want to invest are basically turned away. And then at the end of it all, here we are, the government saying we don't have enough money, we don't have foreign exchange, can't even buy petrol and diesel for the use of the country, and the economy collapses. So there is an astounding effect, isn't there?
Yes. When talking about that investment process, you may be surprised to hear that at the moment there are much more outward investments by the Sri Lankans in foreign countries than the inward investments that are coming into this country from foreign investors. Why is that happening? Because even the Sri Lankan investors, who are probably affluent and influential people in various strata of life, even they are sick of it, because even they can't get things moving. That is why they are also looking at other places like, even worst of all, even Bangladesh or India or even Vietnam. A lot of our people have, I don't want to name these people, they are top level blue chip companies in Sri Lanka are going and investing in those countries. They have a lot of problems, but they still feel that as far as the bribery and corruption is concerned, those countries are still better than this country. So, that said, the only way how we can entice these foreign investors to come is to make an effort to make people realize that the government means business, and this government will have zero tolerance on corruption. That said, we must start fighting corruption from places like, as I said before, Lanka transformers. Start from the biggest. Don't start from the school principals. Don't start from the police officer on the road when paid 500 rupees, he loses his job and poor fellow. I'm not on that. Start on the big fish. There must be a separate unit. I saw in the papers the other day that the FCIB, Financial Crimes Bureau, is going to be revived again. The problem was during that time was they put a Financial Crimes Bureau and they put a criminal in charge of the Financial Crimes Bureau. I mean, I don't blame the authorities, but the person who was appointed there happened to be a crook himself. So, get the right people. This country is not short of honest people. We have enough and more honest people, except that those people are not given the opportunity to exercise their discretion in a honest manner and to do what they have to do. So, that is all that we have to encourage. The people who are going to be appointed, even the Director General, is a matter that should be left for the Constitutional Council. The Commission members, I think that they have been approved by the Constitutional Council. So, these are matters that we should take on another level. The appointees themselves, and also we have proposed in our legal reforms that sometimes with the kind of commercial crimes that are taking place, it is not easy for the ordinary police constable to understand how they have been done. It goes beyond a certain level of comprehension. So that is why we have also proposed that institutes like the Institute of Chartered Accountants, of course they never come out and they fight corruption because they only speak for money. But they can officially get some people nominated. There are respectable people even among chartered accountants. People like Mr. Chandra Jayaratna and then few other people. And also from amongst the lawyers. Let there be panel of experts. Let the Bribery and Corruption Commission, if ever necessary, have the opportunity of consulting these people. Let there be even other scientists to be brought in. Maybe from the GSMB side, maybe there are various fields that may be relevant. So let that panel be consulted. Let the panel also be given the opportunity of going into these cases and then examine. Let it also be supervised. Let it not be given only to the 5 members that have been appointed to the commission, because that has failed. No? That has totally failed. There is no question about it. Now when you say 12 years have been taken by a commission to prosecute the Greek bond case, now already I think it's about close upon 1 year has taken with regard to the economic crimes that were committed in Sri Lanka, as having been
the Supreme Court judgment.
The Supreme Court judgment has elaborately dealt with that. In 150 odd pages, they have elaborately dealt with the manner in which these crimes were committed and the losses were incurred by the state. But there may be in certain instances where we have to even amend the law. So in such instances, we must immediately, of course, I am not saying that it should be done now because there is no parliament now, but such laws should be brought in immediately and then dealt with the situation to curb the issue, the burning issue that we are facing, the cancer. If not, we don't have time. We have no time. If you don't do these things within the first 6 months of this government, I'm not saying that this government is going to fail, but this country is going to fail again.
Now, when you look at the quantum of money, the investments which we are simply losing out on, just a couple of weeks ago, it was announced that Apple and Google, 2 of the richest companies in the world, are investing something like $15 billion in Malaysia. And of course, the Malaysian, the currency, the ringgit, has immediately become one of the best performing currencies in Asia. So the entire Malaysian economy, which was quite strong anyway, has been strengthened by this. Now, a country like Sri Lanka isn't even looked at by companies like that, by the Apples and the Googles and so on.
The reason why we are not being looked at is we have so many regulations governing all these issues. The word in the modern world today is deregulation, less governance. Make it open for the people to decide what they want to do, so long as it's not illegal. Every time the government is trying to step in and say, no, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, you have to get my approval, you have to get the cabinet approval, you have to get the minister's approval, you have to get the institution's approval and all that. What is all this for? This sing-song and a dance that we are having is to curb and restrict the investment process. As I said, the 24 approvals that have been taken with regard to an infrastructure project, why can't we make it not 24 approvals? Now, under the new Economic Transformation Act, there are no agreements that are to be entered into with the BOI. There is only a notice to be given, a letter to be written, something like that, very simple process. That there are certain good aspects of it also, which I appreciate. And then you are a BOI company to be registered under the economic transformation. But of course, the problem here is we are not giving any relief, no tax relief, no BTT, no GST. So if we are not going to offer these things, which are all offered by the peers of our region,
the Malaysias, the islands, Singapore,
Thailand,
and so on.
India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Pakistan, everywhere, they are not going to look at us. Why should they look at us? So we must do better than those countries, because they will say if they are given these holidays, we lose that income. Yes, if they don't come, we are not getting that income anyway. But if they come, we are at least getting the dollars into this country, and also we are also giving the employment opportunity for our own people. When I was at the BOI, I found that there was a Sri Lankan gentleman who walked into my office and said that, look, I want to bring in the London Stock Exchange, the back office. I said, okay, very good idea. So
To
what do you
Sri
want?
Lanka.
To Sri Lanka. What do you want from me? So give me a letter saying that, look, that BOI will give the total facilitation, and that we encourage them. I said, have you made an application to the BOI? By that time, he had not made the application. Then I called the director of investments into my room, told him to sit with this gentleman, and got him to fill the application form. And he gave the application form then and there. And then I issued the letter then. In a manner, it was more than his expectation. I said, we are very much excited by this project. I have only seen a person. I have only spoken to a person. But giving this letter, what would it cost me? Nothing. What would it cost the institution? Nothing. What would it cost the country? Nothing. But I gave the letter. You won't believe, within 3 months, he brought the project. We gave the approval. I must also pay this compliment to Mr. Ranjit Fernand, who was the chairman of the UDA at that time. He allocated the office space in front of New Olympia in Maradana, and we opened that thing. And that when he started, they gave employment opportunity to 750 people, part of the London Stock Exchange back office. Now I know that there are 1,500 people who are working there. Look at these decisions have to be taken then and there. If you are scared to take these decisions, nothing will happen. Each investor is different to another. Each investor will come with a different problem. And there were instances where some people were bringing the salmon belly from Norway, and they were processing it. They want to process it here in Sri Lanka and then take it to Japan. Salmon belly for Japanese people, it's a delicacy. Now, environmental authority said, no, you are going to throw away the balanced remnants in Sri Lanka, so we can't. That's going to be environmental pollution, and it's a laughing matter. They were not near me. I would have given them a kick if they were anywhere near me. So what I did was, this is not something that even if you throw away, that is fish meal. Anyway, what I did was, okay, what is the amount of import that you are going to bring it into Sri Lanka, the salmon belly? So depending on the amount that they said, I said, okay, give a bank guarantee of $250 million. They said, fine, we can give that. And we get out the project. So that they will be exporting or whatever the use that they will be converting it to. So like that, you have to look at their problem. Each and every person will have a different problem. Same with the remodeling of the used computers. There were different projects. When they start this project, it may be a very small project. But this will one day turn into be a huge project. Now take on the other hand, during Rajapaksa regime, there was another office that had been put there to examine the oil reserves in the Mana Basin. They have been there. I don't know what kind of thing that was going on, but it is said to be there. But what are we doing about it? Have we opened it to the investors of the world? We have not done that. But if you have to do that, then they'll put all kinds of conditions. We will never go through with it. Then we have the Pavela phosphate reserve. What are we doing about it? We have graphite. What are we doing about it? We are exporting graphite in gunny bags. It can be converted into nanographite and then finally titanium. This is gold. It is worth more than gold. Not gold. It's like diamond. But what are we doing about it? We have to add on the value addition process. So these are different industries where the government also has to get involved at some point or the other. If they don't get involved in this process, there is no private investor who will make that investment until such time there is some government commitment. But that doesn't mean that the government should get involved at all in the management. The management should be given 100% to the investor. The government can have some share.
But at the moment, government is not facilitating. This is the problem.
All that depends on the people who are sitting on those places. Take the treasury. Because the treasury is responsible for this downfall? Take the central bank. Central bank is responsible for this downfall. Look at all the failing finance companies. These things didn't happen overnight. What was the central bank doing? The bank supervision division. They were doing sweet nothing. They were in deep slumber again. So when it goes wrong, when the investors are unable to withdraw their funds only, they open their eyes. Something has gone wrong. Then they go and seize their properties and all that. That's not the way to do it. If they have been doing a proper auditing of these companies, if they have been looking at it with a critical angle, none of these finance companies would have failed. Because some of the people, some finance companies, there is a limitation that they can't use the finance company money for investments. What they do is they create another company, give a loan to that company. They put outside people, but they virtually control that company. So they draw the money out of the investments that are there in the finance company. It has been happening.
So these are common tricks which we all know about. But the central bank doesn't seem to know about it.
Because they are all paid. I say with responsibility, they are all paid. That is why they are not opening their eyes. No, I don't say all the officers. I would say 95% of the officers are honorable people. But there are a few 5% people in critical positions.
But that's another point, isn't it? These nefarious officials seem to get appointed to the critical positions.
Those people who get into these critical positions are the culprits. But then they cannot be doing what they are doing unless supervised by the hierarchy. What is the hierarchy doing about it? Unless the hierarchy themselves are up to no good. If they are up to no good, then they will also be allowing these people also to make some money on their own, on the side. That's where the problem is today that we are facing.
Now let's look at the bright side of things. In my opinion, and I hope you agree, we have an excellent Supreme Court and Court of Appeal, because their judgments, once the case has reached there, they seem to be quite sound.
I think we must be thankful to these two honorable courts, the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, without which this country wouldn't have been able to go this far. It is they who have intervened at every given time. When the call came, in whatever the issues that were placed before them, they have acted decisively. And the honor goes to all the judges, some judges who are now retired and gone, some judges who are still there, some may be retiring in the near future. They have to be given the honor for having conducted themselves in the most dignified way and having had the courage to call a spade a spade.
And they have in fact stood up to the government when the courts were also under attack, especially in Parliament.
Yes. And that was the case of, that was a 5-judge bench presided by His Lordship, the Chief Justice Nalin Pereira, and late Mr. Prasanna Jayawardena was very much involved in the judgment, but all 5 judges agreed and the judgment was given. And also take the Easterbomb case, 7 judges heard it, and I had the greatest respect to the Chief Justice and the 6 other judges who were sitting on that bench, who gave the judgment in the manner that they have given, including faulting the former president, who was the president at that time, who was the person who even appointed the Chief Justice. So these are 2 different scenarios. So they have demarcated, they have drawn the line between the personal respect or regard and the duty. They have acted in a manner as expected by the people, as expected by not only the people in this country, but also the entire world.
And I'm afraid we are out of time. It's been a very interesting discussion. My thanks to Mr. Upul Jayasuriya, President's Counsel and former President of the Bar Association. Thank you very much, Mr. Jayasuriya. Hope to have you on our program in the near future once again. And thank you very much to you at home for watching. Don't go away because the news is coming up next. Have a good evening.